Thanks for coming tonight. Do you want to do a check-in? We can go around the table and see what's new and exciting.
Madonna Doucette runs LGBT support groups on Cape Breton Island. She's worried about what happened after a flood in her hometown of Sydney, Nova Scotia. The evangelical Christian groups Samaritan's Purse and Billy Graham Chaplains showed up to help.
Well, they're the ideal target, right? They are so outside of what Samaritan's Purse thinks was God's plan. And, you know, they are vulnerable. They are questioned every step of their way in their life. Their families don't support a lot of them. Like, a lot of them have parents that still don't believe after 3 years that they are trans-identified.
Dr. McCarville did his own research to find out what stance Billy Graham chaplains take. On the Billy Graham evangelistic website, they tell people to pray for their homosexual loved ones that aren't seeking freedom from homosexuality. And the website also claims that many homosexual people discover heterosexual attraction when they seek Christian support counseling. So Dr. McCarville wrote another letter to the local paper, warning people about the dangers of believing in what's called gay conversion therapy.
So it's a form of counseling where people try to turn gay people straight, which is it's a horrible practice, very harmful. Gay conversion therapy has been linked to increased rates of anxiety, depression, even suicide. The serious medical organizations have all said, you know, this is not, number one, this doesn't work, and number two, it's very harmful. So organizations like the Canadian Pediatric Society, the American Psychiatric Association, the World Health Organization, they all denounce gay conversion therapy because it's so harmful.
There's no evidence that Billy Graham chaplains were talking about gay conversion therapy in Sydney, but Madonna's still worried. She's seen too many LGBT people pressured to try to change who they are. Many times it's because of religion.
I was 8 years old when I first tried to approach my parents for help. They are fiercely religious, evangelical, right-wing, and instead of granting me any access to medical help, I got a lecture about how God doesn't make mistakes. And that was probably the end of my trust for my parents, as far as I was concerned. At one point, they tried to get me into the aversion therapy fairly early on, which I fought tooth and nail over.
Yeah, my grandmother was always really homophobic and transphobic, and, you know, there's still some of that negativity at my house with my mom's new boyfriend.
There's a story I heard of a young girl in Badek. Badek is a very rural, traditional community. Anyway, she was going to her friend's house, and her friend's grandmother decided to lecture her on her choice of friends because this person's friend identified publicly as bisexual. And then the next time she went, her mother actually launched, so she had 2 generations of women trying to save her soul for just being friends with someone who identified as bisexual.
I had a partner of the same sex, and their mom would try and save me. She was a born-again Christian. So she'd invite me to her church, and then people within her church would be like, "Are you sure this is what you want to be doing?" I'm like, "Oh, no." But that's like, I mean, as a kid, it's...
So you didn't get the abomination speech then?
No. But I'd find like little "Are you ready to be saved" pamphlets in my pockets.
I wanted to not be gay when I realized I was a mom. I would have done anything to not be gay. But you can't make someone into something that they're not. So these are just people that are being, like, to use a simple term, peer pressured. They're having to pick and choose, make their priorities over themselves or their family. And really, that's what they're asking. They're asking them to put their needs secondary to make everyone around them comfortable. You can't live like that. You will end up hating yourself.
Madonna Doucette hopes that if there's another natural disaster in Cape Breton, people won't be so quick to accept help from Samaritan's Purse and Billy Graham chaplains.
We have to have a response, first of all. We just can't be lackadaisical about it and just let them sort of slither in between the cracks and just make their home here. When they were here the first time, I guess it took me a little while to actually sink in.
And you think you'll win?
I think I'll try, and that's all that matters.